Welcome to Making Civics Matter. Today's video is on landmark Supreme Court cases. I know. Marbury versus Madison was a Supreme Court case that established judicial review, and most call it the most significant and important Supreme Court case. William Marbury sued James Madison because Marbury did not receive his commission to become a District of Columbia judge. Marbury sued Madison because Madison was the one who kept them from being delivered. It was ruled in the Supreme Court of the United States that the Supreme Court did not have enough power to order Madison to turn over Marbury's commission. Then John Marshall, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, made judicial review a thing. Judicial review means the Supreme Court can limit the power of the executive branch in Congress. And Marbury didn't even get his job. Plessy v. Ferguson was a landmark Supreme Court decision that upheld the constitutional racial segregation under separate but equal doctrine. Homer Plessy bought a first-class ticket for a train, and as any person who buys a ticket, he took the train. After he was seated on the train, the conductor of the train ordered Plessy to move to a different coach because Plessy was not visibly white. Plessy refused and was thrown off the train and put in jail. Plessy was 7/8 white and argued that he was allowed to sit with the white passengers, but legally, Plessy was black. Plessy was put on trial and appealed to the trial court, then the Louisiana Supreme Court, and arrived at the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court confirmed that the separate but equal doctrine was constitutional.
Brown v. Board of Education was a landmark Supreme Court case that overturned the decision of Plessy v. Ferguson. The case sprouted from a black girl being refused enrollment in a school because she was African American. The families went to ruled against the man. The families arrived at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices ruled that the separate but equal doctrine was mentally harmful to black children, and this case had a ripple effect and stopped segregation in public places.
Okay, robot. Over. Gideon versus Wainwright is a landmark Supreme Court case that ruled that defendants who cannot afford an attorney or counsel will be provided with one. Clarence Gideon was accused of a burglary. He was arrested and put on trial. Gideon was not financially able to provide himself with a legal counsel, so he had to defend himself in court. Clarence Wainwright ended up being acquitted, and this court case established what are known as public defenders. Miranda versus Arizona is a landmark Supreme Court case that established Miranda rights. Ernesto Miranda ended up getting convicted of the crimes that he was accused of.
Can I take over?
Sure.
Okay, this man went through all this just to be convicted. What a noob. Child anyways. The Miranda rights, or also known as the Miranda warning, is have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used at blah blah.
The next court case is is a landmark Supreme Court case that ruled that the 14th Amendment also applies to juvenile cases. Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District ruled that students can wear clothing items as long as it does not disturb the learning environment. Hazelwood versus Kohlmeyer ruled that schools may restrict what is published in the student newspaper if the papers have not been established as public forums.
My turn. The next case is U.S. versus Nixon. This case ruled that no person, not even the President of the United States, is completely above the law, and the President cannot use executive privilege as an excuse to withhold evidence that is relevant in a trial. The next case is Bush v. Gore. This case decided the 2000 presidential election between Vice President Al Gore and former President George W. Bush. Bush v. Gore ruled that any manual recount of votes seeking to meet the December 12 safe harbor deadline would be unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. If the Supreme Court ruled that the votes should be recounted, we may have had a different president. Which I wouldn't have a problem with because George W. Bush was in—
Oh, robot, we're not supposed to share political views on this channel.
Oh, okay. Sorry, child anyways. Oh, and by the way, former President Bush won. hence the title president.
Finally, we're done.
Finally, I'm tired of these people. Haha, just kidding.
Okay, now go down there and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Don't forget to like and share with your friends. Remember to go and take our quiz at the end of April to attempt to receive a $25 Visa gift card. Remember that you must be a 7th grader at Deerfield Beach Middle School.